You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hey, it's Michelle. Okay, so up front, I'm just going to let y'all know I'm in my laundry room. You're going to hear my dryer. Super profesh, but the truth of the matter is I bought a house that was built in 1919. Some people, may call it charming. And although it does have charming qualities about it, charming is not particularly the word I would use to describe a home that slowly every week is falling apart. So I have some AC guys here. That's why I'm hiding in my laundry room, because we have no AC. And for those of you that live in Minnesota or New England, that sounds like, what's the big deal? But as some of you know, I reside in Florida, where it is currently 86 degrees. So not having AC and having a bushel full of children is an experience I wish upon no one. So hence I am hiding in my laundry room with my dryer while a crew of wonderful men that I am so incredibly grateful for are trying to attempt to reroute my air conditioning unit. Anywho, what does that have to do with addiction? Nothing, nada, just saying that up front. What does have to do with addiction is my son. Not directly, but I'm going to tell you a personal story, and then I'm going to tie it to addiction. So I have, like I mentioned earlier, far too many children for one to remain sane. And my youngest is 10. He just celebrated his 10th birthday last week. So, his name is Henry, and he is the cutest, most delicious thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I just stare at that child and think, like, it doesn't get better than that. He has little blonde curly hair, blue eyes, and he's precious. He's also incredibly sensitive. So for those of you that have kids, or maybe you are one of those people that just, you feel everything like on an extra level. When somebody's like sad, you feel sad. When somebody's mad, you pick up on that energy. Like you just feel things on a deeper level. Not everyone is like that. But Henry is my youngest, and he's I have two kids that are really sensitive. He's one of them. So he gave me permission on the way to school today to tell you all this. Last week, I won the award of Mother of the Year because I am dyslexic. And something that goes along with dyslexia that no one really talks about is you get dates and times wrong quite often. So I try really, really hard. I've tried every organizational tool on the planet, and it's still, I just get it wrong. So last Friday, the school, instead of doing like a fall festival or like some sort of like Halloween party because of COVID, they just asked kids show up in their costumes, and then they were going to do like just like a walk around the campus, like no parents invited, nobody allowed, just like a little small parade. It sounds very cute, right? Obviously with their masks on and social distancing. So of course I forget the whole week. I'm like, I gotta get a costume. Of course I forget to get the costume. So it's Friday morning, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So then I'm like, King Henry. Okay, King Henry, we'll go with that. And my oldest son, who is in college, was homecoming king last year. So he literally, like, they crowned him with a crown and like a giant, beautiful robe. which I had held on to. He actually displayed the crown in his room, and then I like put the cape away in a closet somewhere. So I'm like, boom, that's it. Now, did the crown from my 18-year-old fit my 9-year-old or 10-year-old? No, it did not. But who cares, right? That's just details. No one needs to care. And yes, the robe was like ginormous, but who cares? We're not being picky. It's COVID, people. And he's, number 6 in the line of kids. He gets what he gets. So I made him feel super special. King Henry, he loved that. Told him a little bit of the story about that. Get him in the car. This is last Friday. And my husband drives him to school in the morning. So he comes back from school, and he goes to a school where he has to wear a uniform. But kings don't wear school uniforms, obviously. So he put on just a short pair of shorts and t-shirts underneath his robe and crown. So he goes to school and comes back home and is really upset. Now, this is, again, sensitive kid, so I'm used to this. I'm used to, we work through quite a bit in the car on the way home of what happened through the day. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, what happened now? What did someone say to you? And he goes, Mom, I showed up in class dressed as a king on the wrong day. There was no costume parade. Nobody else in the entire school was dressed in their costume. So I had to spend the whole day looking like a fool in my costume. And I thought, yeah, I could have sworn. I wrote it down, you guys. I wrote it down in my agenda. I just wrote down the wrong day. It's next Friday, not this Friday. So he was humiliated. That's his word. I was humiliated. I was embarrassed, and I don't blame him. So again, another award to add to my shelf of Mother of the Year. And honestly, most of the time, I'm like, yeah, big deal. I made a mistake. But that one was kind of bad. I felt for the kid. I was like, yeah, that's humiliating. I don't blame you. Sorry about that, buddy. I really apologize. And I felt so just bad for him. But here's the deal. All morning, all weekend, he was talking about, and all morning this morning, and today's Monday morning, he was talking about how he didn't want to go to school because of what happened and how all of the kids are going to mention it again, and he doesn't want to live through it. And, he just feels so embarrassed and humiliated still. And I had to dig deep as a mom. You know how you have to open your toolbox and go, okay, how are we going to get through this? I got to help my kid because he has to go to school. So we're driving to school this morning. I promise this will be about addiction soon. And I said to him, Henry, I've had many embarrassing things happen to me, like a gazillion things. And if you're waiting for the day where you're going to be perfect and you're never going to have embarrassing moments, you're going to be waiting for the rest of your life. You just have to focus on becoming a confident enough person to say, yeah, totally embarrassing. My mom got the date wrong, and own it. Own the embarrassment. Own the fact that you messed up. If you fall down in the hallway or, you do something humiliating in front of a crowd, just go, yeah, that was bad. That was humiliating. That was awkward. And just recognize it, acknowledge it, and then it removes the shame. It takes the power out of the situation. It removes the shame and the embarrassment. It just brings everyone down to a normal level when you acknowledge the embarrassment that everyone is feeling for you. And he said, I don't know if I can do that. I said, listen, I have lived through a lot of embarrassing moments, particularly a lot of embarrassing moments during my first marriage. Now, Henry, is unusual, where I have a lot of open conversations and dialogues around the dinner table with my children about my past, about addiction, because they need to be informed and because I believe in being honest with them. So Henry knows all about my first husband. And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, when you love someone that's suffering from addiction, it is very, very easy to get wrapped up in the comparison game of looking at your partner and going, this is humiliating. This is so embarrassing. Other people are judging me. If only other people knew what was going on, I would be incredibly embarrassed. And so I said, Henry, I've lived through that. And that taught me, particularly leaving, taught me how to be courageous and strong and how not to care what other people thought about me. That was one of the gifts addiction provided me. And so I'm going to give you some examples of some times that I was married to a good man who struggles with addiction, and times where I was humiliated and chose to stand my ground and chose not to go into shame, but to just acknowledge, yeah, this is bad. This is awkward. This is not fun. This doesn't feel good to anybody. But it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean things are doomed. It doesn't mean that nobody else in this room has ever been humiliated or embarrassed, right? Like, we have to find our courage, even when our partners are making really embarrassing choices. So, I'm trying to think of one that, well, I'll give you the one that I felt was the most powerful. Let's start there. So when I was married to this man, we lived in a suburb, and it was a type of suburb where it was like a community within a community. And it was, everybody knew everyone. Like, the bus stopped on the corner and all the moms were out on the side of the corner waiting for their kids to get off the bus. And then all the kids played together and all the moms hung out. So it was that type of community. And every day when my kid would get off the bus, I would talk to these wonderful moms, but I would hide from them what was really going on. I never mentioned to anybody that my husband was struggling with addiction. I never told them he was struggling with drugs or looking at pornography or drinking too much, or that our marriage was barely hanging on, or, that I didn't know where he was half the time, or that we couldn't pay our bills most of the time because addiction is expensive. I hid that from them because I was embarrassed. And because I didn't want him to be embarrassed. I was embarrassed for him, right? I didn't want them to judge him, and I didn't want them to judge me. And frankly, I was like, gosh, they live so close, like they live next door to me. They're going to keep their eye on me. They're going to start to look at our home a lot more than they are now. And I didn't want the attention. Not only because it was negative attention, but because I am a private person, and I don't particularly enjoy that. So when I decided to leaving somebody who doesn't want to be left is never easy. I found that out very quickly. When I finally decided, and I had that breakthrough moment where I'm like, okay, I'm done. I thought in my mind, well, look, he's drinking, he's using drugs. Of course he's been leaving me for years. Why would he care if I finally took the kids and left? Like, doesn't he want his freedom to just get drunk and get high and party and sleep with whoever he wants? Doesn't that sound like his dream? Because he's been doing that most of our marriage. So why would he care if I left now? Well, they do care. And it's not so much because they're in love with us, because years later, he told me, he's like, I don't think I ever really loved you, which I, at the time, was like, yeah, duh. Like, I don't think you did either. That's why you kept leaving, choosing drugs and alcohol over me. how can you love me when you didn't even love yourself? But when I left, it wasn't, he put up such a fight, and that was so surprising to me. And it was for two reasons, I think. This is my theory. And none of them were because he loved me. Number one, it was because of money. This is a very generalization, and if you disagree, cool. Just quietly disagree with me. I get it, and you have the absolute right to disagree with me. But I think that for the most part, and again, generalization, I'm going to say men here. I'm sure that there are women who feel this way too. But if you are in a relationship, in a dynamic where the man is the primary breadwinner, typically men, what I have found is don't like to divorce because of the money, because they have to divide the assets, or they're going to lose assets. They're going to lose cash. So automatically they're like, well, I just want to continue my philandering, is that the word? My infidelity and partying and not have to pay the cost, right? Like I want to have my cake and eat it too. So oftentimes when you're getting a divorce, a man will resist due to finances. The second reason, when you're in love with someone struggling with addiction and you want to leave, is addiction likes to have control. I like to think of addiction as a third party in the relationship. So you have the person you love, your partner, and you have yourself. And addiction is this third party that loves to control both your partner and you. And when you finally take a stand, whether it's you want a divorce or you are like, I'm going to implement boundaries, darn it, and I am not going to play by your rules anymore, and you start to gain that courage and that independence that I've been talking about, addiction is like, oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't. I'm going to challenge you every step of the way. Why? Because it feels threatened. You're taking back your control. And the only way that addiction thrives in a relationship is if it continues to maintain control over you and your loved one. So going back to when I decided to leave my ex-husband, he did not want to be left, not out of love, not because he's still hanging on to this fairy tale dream that I was still hanging on to of a sober, healthy, wholesome family that lived in the suburbs and, was just like growing old together and creating memories together. That wasn't why he was resisting me leaving him. It was because I was taking back my control and because there was a threat that his lifestyle would not be able to maintain. I was literally draining money from our bank account that could be used towards partying and getting high and getting drugs. That's why a lot of the times, if you are looking to join the program and you're like, crap, that's a lot of money, I know my partner's going to get upset with me for spending that on myself. Yeah, they are. Number one, because you're getting control and you're getting better and they don't want you to. They don't want you to get wiser. They want you to stay naive and stuck. And they want you to continue to put up with this so they can have their cake and eat it too. And number two, if you spend money on yourself to get better, it's less money for them to spend on their addiction, which is all the more reason why I encourage you to spend money on your healing, to spend money on yourself. Get the program, go to therapy, invest, because it's less money for drugs and alcohol, right? So I decided to leave, and I was surprised every step of the way at the resistance that I was getting. And there was tons of resistance. There was threats. There was lies. He told his family all these vicious, terrible lies about me and what I was doing with the kids. There was court battles where, he was challenging me every step of the way. There was refusal to pay bills. So I had my electricity cut off. I had to get a restraining order. It was yucky, guys. It was yucky, right? And all the while, I'm getting challenged and getting shocked by this man who I was slowly figuring out never really loved me to begin with, because if you love somebody, you don't behave this way. It's slowly like the truth, it's like the fog, it clears, and like you start to see clearly. The scales get removed from your eyes, and you're like, holy crap, I've been living in a fantasy world that like I was so out of touch with reality. And so I'm slowly starting to awaken to reality. And I'm realizing this is yucky, and I'm not wanting to tell my neighbors what's really going on. All the while, I'm struggling by myself on my own, thinking I am too embarrassed to share this information and what I'm struggling with anybody, right? A couple of my family members knew, but that was it. I didn't tell, any of my old friends, and I didn't tell anyone around me until one day where I had to leave my house with my kids and hide in a hotel for several days because our safety was being threatened. And then I went and got a restraining order per the suggestion of my lawyer to get possession of my house, because the house was in both of our names. And so the times that I had to call the police before, the police came, but then they looked at me and they're like, there's nothing we can do. We can't kick him out of the house for you because it's a shared possession. So they actually handed me a domestic violence pamphlet and said, get a lawyer and try to get a restraining order if you can. So I went and got one, and I got possession temporarily of the house and then you have to re-up your restraining order. It's only for a certain amount of days depending on. And then hopefully my train of thought was I just keep renewing the restraining order until we were divorced. And then I could move out of the house, because by that time, that house had such bad memories for me. I had come to the reality. At first I was like, I don't want to leave my home. This is where my kids grew up. This is where my babies came home. This is where I know and love. But then during the divorce, I was like, you know what? I need to be really open to the idea of beginning again, and even just a new location. I can't maintain this house. This house is, as a single mom, it's too expensive. It's too much maintenance. And how exciting would it be actually to start over in my own space? So I got a restraining order to get back in the house, because that's where my kids' toys were and our clothing was, and that's where I was doing the cooking, and so that's where everything was. I couldn't stay in a hotel. So got back in the house, and because my safety and my life was being threatened, my stepdad, who knew what was going on, nailed down the windows, took really long, big nails and a hammer and nailed all of the windows shut, so that if somebody tried to break the glass and open the lock, they couldn't. And the other thing that we did was we changed the locks on all of the house, because I knew he had a key. So I had to hire a locksmith. And I was not prepared for that, because we called the locksmith and we had 3 doors in our home, maybe 2. But it took a while, and his van pulled up, and there was in giant black font all across his van was locksmith. And then changing locks on doors takes hours, which I had no idea. So, of course, the bus comes during the time the locksmith is there. My kid gets off the bus, and thankfully my mother went out to get him, my child. And I could see all of the neighbors look, and this neighborhood was in the South. And I could see all the neighbors looking and being like, what is a locksmith? Why is she getting the locks on her doors changed? And then I could just see the wheels turning. Like, I knew these women. These women were my friends, and I knew they were smart. And I'm like, they're going to start to put two and two together. Like, they're going to start to notice that my ex-husband has not been around, and they've not seen his car in the driveway. And they're going to start to notice, like, we were gone for a couple days last week. Where were we? Like, something is going on. And immediately I went into a mode where I was... Okay, sorry guys. There was a quick break there because my air conditioning guy was knocking at the door. So if you heard some banging, that's what that is. So let me pick this back up. Now I'm outside. I'm sorry. I just wanted to record this because I thought it would be helpful to you. But there's a lot going on. Okay, so here's the deal. I knew the neighbors would see me, right? Like, I knew there would need to be some inquiry. And because addiction is such a freaking liar, I hate lying. Like, I despise dishonesty. I refuse to partake in the lying, even if it means I need to look like a fool. Even if it means I need to reveal the truth. I rather tell the truth than ever lie. So I was in my house and I thought, they're going to know. And the gig is up. And I got to not only tell them, this is what I've been dealing with while being your neighbor for 7 years. But also I'm in danger. And I need you guys to help me. Just keep an eye out on the house. And if you see any suspicious activity, please, don't hesitate to call 911. And it was a really difficult conversation that I'm not going to lie, embarrassed to have. But their response was so loving, so kind. They were all shocked. Nobody knew, nobody suspected. But they were all they brought over casseroles and they wrote me letters and notes, and some of them I still keep in touch with today, and it's been years and years and years later. But it taught me a very valuable lesson about embarrassment and humiliation that I was teaching my son today, which is, look, we can all sit here. We have a choice. We can sit here and be embarrassed and feel bad and take on shame about loving people that genuinely struggle with a disease, right? And all of the drama that comes along with that. Or we can sit here and go, you know what? This is my reality. And truth be told, most of us do love good people, right? Underneath all of the addiction, they are not monsters. They are good men and women that have a lot to offer this world if they got sober and made healthier choices, right? That's why we fell in love with them. We fell in love with them because we are such positive, empathetic people that we saw all of their potential. We fell in love with the person they could be, not necessarily the person that they are today. And we can take ownership in that. We can be proud of ourselves that we're not dismissive, that if somebody is, doesn't look good or act well, we can take pride in the fact that we love the broken, that we care for the wounded, that we are such empaths that we want to help. Let's be proud of that, okay? And let's not sit there and judge ourselves or let other people judge us for the destruction that this disease is causing our lives. First of all, it is a universal destruction, and it's happening all over the world to millions and millions of people and families. So it's much more common than we think it is. And if we just stopped thinking, oh, this is so embarrassing and nobody can relate and everyone's going to judge me and think I'm the worst and think he's the worst and blah, 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 blah. If we dropped all of that and raised our hand and said, this is happening to me, I guarantee you it would be shocking to all of us how many women can raise their hand, or men raise their hand and say, yeah, me too. Particularly the men, because the highest demographic that's rising in alcoholism is women, actually. So let's just first start with, we love good people who have a disease that they did not ask for, and that we refuse to feel sorry or ashamed or embarrassed for ourselves and our lives for actually taking back control over what we have lost. That's what hit me. When I was seeing that locksmith, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to choose to live in embarrassment or shame anymore. I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to tell what's really going on. And I'm not going to be a victim about it. And I'm not going to sit there and wah, me. I'm going to come across to my friends and family like I know what the hell I'm doing. And I've got a plan. And I'm not afraid or embarrassed or ashamed to tell my story anymore. Because the truth of the matter is, my husband is struggling and he's choosing not to get help. I am struggling and I am choosing to get help. I am going to make a difference. I am going to change the trajectory of my future. And that is nothing to be embarrassed about. That is something to be proud about. In fact, I know a lot of people in this world who don't love somebody that's struggling with addiction, who don't take control over their future. So this is our opportunity. This is your opportunity to rid yourself of the messaging that, first of all, this is only happening to you, because it's not. And number two, that it's something that you or even the person that's struggling with addiction needs to be ashamed of. Nobody in this scenario needs to feel ashamed or embarrassed. Nobody in this whole situation. My ex-husband made terrible choices. Terrible choices. Does he owe people an apology? Yes, of course he does. Of course he does. Does he need to take ownership? Absolutely. Does he suffer the consequences? For sure, without a doubt. But should he walk around this earth with shame? Absolutely not. In fact, that's probably what got him here in the first place. So let's set the example for ourselves, our family, our kids, our spouses, partners, whatever. Let's be the first one at the table to raise our hand and go, yep, you know what? I'm just not okay with sitting here accepting the fact that I'm going to feel humiliated and embarrassed about an epidemic, an issue that affects millions. I'm choosing not to do that. Today, I'm going to choose to give this a voice. I'm going to share this with others. I'm going to let go of the shame. I'm going to say, like I told Henry, yeah, this is my life. It's not exactly what I had planned. This isn't where I expected it to be, but I'm going to take charge and I'm going to change it around. And do you know how many people probably would look at you and go, well, you know what? I can't really understand about the addiction, but I certainly know about life not ending up where you want it to be. And I commend you and I applaud you and I look up to you and admire you for choosing to take control over it. Do you know how many people would do that? I do. Why? Because I tell every person I can at every opportunity about addiction, because I'm on a mission to shed light on a very dark topic, because we have nothing. Nobody has any reason to feel ashamed. And my kids, thank God, have taken that up. And they will talk about addiction with their family or with their schoolmates, with their classmates, with their teachers. They tell anyone and everyone that their biological father struggles with addiction. And they don't say it out of anger, and they don't say it out of embarrassment. They say it as a matter of fact. And it's so healthy. And how did we get there? That doesn't happen with just one conversation, y'all. It doesn't happen with you just sharing this with one person once in a lifetime, or having one conversation with your kids once in a while. It happens by you having many conversations with many people and letting your kids watch you have those conversations. If you're walking around feeling ashamed and embarrassed of the situation that you're in, guess who else is going to feel ashamed and embarrassed? Your children. So teach them. Teach your family members if you don't have kids. Teach your mom, teach your dad, teach your aunts and uncles. Teach their family, your loved one's family, just through example, by saying, I'm not going to keep this a secret anymore. I'm going to walk over to my neighbors and let them know, hey, yep, things are bad. This is not good. And they're out of control. And I don't have all the answers. And I don't know what to do tomorrow. But today, my first choice is just to tell you guys and let you know I need some help. And I guarantee you, if you've got the right friends and the right family, they will rise to the occasion to support you, because we all need support. Seasonal support. We all do. Now, if the friend looks at you, and you might have this. I've had this. I have had the snobber women at my school where I will talk about it, or my kids' school, where I will talk about addiction, and you bet your bottom dollar they're judging me, and I don't care. Fine. You can go ahead and give me that look. Why? Because I'm confident enough in myself and my past to know everything I have gone through has worked for my benefit. The pain, the struggle, the embarrassment, all of it is actually working for my good today, tomorrow, and for my kids' good and my future generations' good. And I'm completely comfortable with who I am and what I've gone through. And I am even more comfortable talking about it. Let those snobbers, judgers, do whatever the heck they want to do. Who cares? They've got their own skeletons in their own closet. And the only reason why they're judging you is because they're frightened of their own stuff coming out. And they're judging themselves for it. I guarantee you, secretly, the judgers and the snobbers are probably jealous of you. That you can live so freely. That you're so comfortable in your own skin and so confident in yourself that you can say this stuff out loud and not be worried about any repercussions socially that it will cost you. Find out who your true friends are. I challenge you to do that by sharing what you're going through. Break this whole need for a perfect image. Break it, shatter it. It will feel so damn freeing. And you know what? If you are like me, where you had a group of friends and you're pretty super social, and you had multiple circles of people that you hung with, and then you start to say, yeah, it's not what it looks, guys. I remember somebody saying to me when I was married to my first husband, you guys look like a Ralph Lauren ad. I can't believe this actually was going on. That was the image I was projecting. And I blew it up to shreds. And it felt so damn liberating. And was I only left with 2-3 people? Yep. Was that enough? Hell yeah. In fact, it was more than enough. Because those 2 or 3 people that stayed in my life and showed up with a casserole or checked in on me to make sure I was okay or sent me encouraging messages, those people meant everything. And I could just focus on feeding those friendships and those relationships. And everyone else was just noise. We have to be okay with the embarrassment and shame moving through this. Because when we are okay with it, it actually turns out to not be embarrassment and shame, but some of the best things that have ever happened to us. That's how you take addiction and you turn it into something great. Is when it loses its control over you because you refuse to be embarrassed by it. Now, I could give you 5 different other ways that embarrassing stories, but I've made this long enough for you guys. So, and I know you're busy. But I love you. I hope you found something in here that helped you out today. I believe in you. You've got this and you can do this. It's going to get better. Deep breaths. Keep making good choices. And make decisions just one at a time. Love you. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with my personal thoughts and beliefs. We are bonded together by the fact that we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.